one of the biggest things that I was seeing floating around was obviously the government wanted to release a lot of information on Jeffrey Epstein. So the Attorney General of the United States, Pamela Bondi, okay, now to give you an idea what the Attorney General is, just before anybody who doesn't live in America doesn't know this, this is the head of the United States Department of Justice, and they serve as the chief LEO of the federal government. They are the top cop in the country. So again, it's understandable that the top cop has access to information that you and I will never have access to, just because of the situation that they're in, just because of the security clearances given. So again, apparently they released in February 2025 a whole slew of evidence and flight logs and information that anybody could look through. I looked through this myself. Now, the thing about all this information that, again, Pam Bondi provided was none of this was new information. This was phase one that even influencers close to the government were touting as like, hey, these are files that are released. Nothing here was actually new. All of this information was stuff that if you really cared about this, you would have already known. For instance, this contact book was something that we had seen years prior to the government releasing phase one of these files. Now, you'd be like, okay, maybe something new is coming out in phase two. And it didn't, okay? But what did actually come out was when the government said that there was no client list, there was actual evidence, apparently, as of like a week ago, where Pam Bondi was saying that she was reviewing tens of thousands of videos apparently related to Jeffrey Epstein. So in one hand, there's apparently 1,000 victims, okay? But now there's no client list. What, did he just do things himself? Maybe it's a semantic thing. Maybe the government says there's no client list. To that I ask, is there a blackmail list? You know what I mean? Now, I'm not an American citizen. I just give a shit pot of money to the Internal Revenue Service. So I feel like I feel like in some cases, maybe I should be entitled to some information, right? Just by proxy. But anyways, I think if you are an American citizen, I think if you are a citizen of the country, you should be asking the same questions I am, just by a factor of 10. Because ultimately, you know, this is justice for victims, obviously, right? There's a lot of people that have been victimized in this, hundreds of them. And realistically, what this shows is that their bravery in coming out actually mattered fucking all. Because now that the people that have victimized them, the clients, which we all know there are, have basically been exonerated, you know, no information about them is ever going to apparently seemingly come out, they can now actually bring the pain back to the victims because their bravery in speaking out all but sealed their foot in the grave, so to speak, right? Because they were kind of assuming that the law was going to help them out. The law did not, in fact, help them out. The law, in fact, covered everything up here. And one of the reasons why I personally 100% believe they covered this up is back in February 2025, the Attorney General of the United States, who now their office is basically saying, yeah, by the way, there is no client list. She said the client list was sitting on her desk at that fucking moment, bro. What a lying fucking bitch. Jesus Christ. You know, this kind of stuff really infuriates me because it's almost as if like they think we're fucking brain dead. They think we're actually fucking dung eaters. That we have no idea. And we could just Google her name, client list, and these actual recorded pieces of articles still exist, okay? So when they asked, right, about that client list, she's like, it's sitting on my desk right now to review. Bondi told America Reports, that's been a directive by President Trump. Okay, all right. Fair enough. This should be declassified. That was actually the one thing I was excited to see, right? It's one of the things that I wanted to see released. If there was somebody, no matter how powerful they are, committing a crime, they should have this information revealed. You should not be protected by the people we pay every year, by the people we elect to protect us from actual evil. But no, in this case, evil actually won. And that's the sad part about this story, right? That's one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video, because I've been following this since its inception. I may not have covered every single detail of the Epstein case. I really just cover this stuff when something huge drops. And what's more huge than the government going back on their entire statement and saying, oh yeah, by the way, I have a client list on my desk. Oh, also it doesn't exist. Which one is it? Did you lie back in February or are you lying now? Like, that's the question I think everyone is asking in the story. But yeah, I don't think you should, as a person, sit down and think what the government is saying is 100% true here. I think all of this is just blackpilling. I've always said, like, hey, report everything to the FBI if you find if you find some bad situations going on. And I do still stand by it, like, obviously report it, but when you see the same federal agency, tout that they're going to declassify this crazy shit, but then at the final minute when they're supposed to, they just back out, renege, and say it doesn't exist, how can you trust this government? How can you trust when there is so much going against Epstein? When there's so much going against the people that he was fraternizing with, right? The people that had come to the island. When there was so much of this circumstantial stuff, when you really needed the federal government to bring up the actual evidence, why is it all gone? I really personally think no matter how powerful you are, it doesn't matter what your beliefs are, it doesn't matter what side of the political aisle you are, once you get to a level of wealth and power, you are all in the same bed together. And especially if you've been fraternizing with this guy and actually committing illegal actions. Because at that point, you really have to protect yourself. Rich people will do anything they can to protect themselves, regardless of the cost of human life, at least from what it seems to me. This has been one of the most disgusting things that I've seen out there, and there's not much more that I can say other than everyone fell for it. And if you're somebody that's going to accept the government sweeping this, then I don't think you can ever really be outraged by any other case of human trafficking, whether it be this, whether it be Diddy, whether it be whatever. These are cases that draw our attention because for the first time, humans can, in this world we live in, see some actual semblance of justice done. But when that justice gets completely gutted and thrown to the side, there is nothing more blackpilling than that. But ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar, and yeah, can't trust anyone in the government. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am out.
This streamer has destroyed his image in the last couple of months, and everything that we're covering today is just so laughably stupid that it doesn't even make sense, and why he's acting the way he is. Starting with allegedly issuing a false DMCA takedown to an indie game creator because of a joke that he made in his game. And that's far from the only pile of trash that he's been a part of this year, with incident after incident essentially making his entire platform a certified printing press of bad takes. This dude somehow is just mass distributing negative aura. But today we're talking about Pirate Software, or Jason Thor Hall, who's a former Blizzard employee who decided to become a streamer. And in the last few months, he's just slowly became a little bit of a laughing stock of the internet. Now, this is all mainly for saying dumb stuff with full confidence, getting blasted by every corner of the internet, and then doubling down like his ego is on life support, and denial is the only way that's keeping it all pumping. So let's rewind a bit, because there's a lot to this story. Months ago, Pirate was a part of a hardcore World of Warcraft guild called Onlyfangs. They were playing a new twist of World of Warcraft called Hardcore, and it's similar to how Hardcore in Minecraft works. If you die in the game, you lose everything. All the hours you spent leveling on the character is now completely gone. And this new twist brought a lot of people who played WoW back in the day back to the game, including some large influencers. So this guild by the name of Onlyfangs wasn't just like filled with your I guess your typical MMO grinders. It was also packed with big streamers, and the only way that you would really join this guild is if you had a large platform. And when it came to getting into this guild, it didn't really matter if you were really good at WoW or not. All it really mattered is if you had a large platform. So the people streaming on this guild had pretty solid viewership. Every death, every wipe, every mistake, it was clipped, memed, and dissected. Pirate previously worked at Blizzard, the company that's behind World of Warcraft, so obviously he's played a lot of WoW, and he made sure that everyone knew this because it seems like he wanted to be perceived as this big brain WoW player. But in one particularly bad run, Pirate's group made some costly mistakes. What did he do? He just dipped. He straight up abandoned his teammates. It didn't get them killed directly, however, the vibe was save yourself, I'm out of here. Not really a good look for a permadeath game.
During the daily activities of the guild, Pirate Software ran into a situation where his group, or rather the group he was in, he wasn't the leader, made some mistakes. Being that the game is hardcore, if you die, there's no coming back on that character. You have to make a new one, which can take hundreds of hours. So after the mistakes were made, the group fractured and communication broke down. During the chaos, Pirate Software ran for his life and basically adopted a sort of every man for himself mentality, which didn't necessarily kill his teammates, but he probably could have helped save them.
Now, is that enough to warrant months of harassment? Absolutely not. But this is the internet, where people will turn any scuffed raid on a video game into a full-blown battle of morality. And honestly, did not help that Pirate acted like, he was a galaxy brain here, and he kept doubling down that he did the right call and he couldn't have done anything else to help his teammates, when this definitely was not the case. And I'm not trying to sit here and be like a backseat gamer, as I haven't played a mage in World of Warcraft since Wrath of the Lich King, but there's a lot of snaring he could have done to at least help his teammates have a better odds of survival here. It seems like he just went, see ya, with no effort in trying to save them. Because of this, he was nicknamed Roach for his awful performance, which isn't an uncommon name for this practice in the first place. So while obviously harassment is taking it too far, you can definitely argue that when you stream a game like this, you kind of have to know that you can get some nicknames coming your way if you act like this in this game. And at that point, you just kind of have to own it, because what's done is done. But he didn't do that. And on January 15th of this year, he was removed from the guild. Okay, so I'm not going to read all that, but he basically gives this in-depth thought process, or as he calls strategy, behind why he couldn't save anyone. Which, look, it's a game. There's no reason to take it this far, but he absolutely could have done way more to help them. And obviously, if you don't play video games, or if you've never played WoW before, this probably seems like a massive nothing burger. Which, I mean, in all reality, in the grand scheme of things, it kind of is, at least this situation. But you have to put a lot of trust in your teammates in a hardcore server like this to not lose hundreds of hours of your own time. So either way, the memes flew, and you would think, okay, just ignore it, just laugh it off, maybe say, yeah, I messed up, and keep moving forward. But no, Pirate did what Pirate does best. He just denies everything. He did the absolute best thing that he could do. This guy is a gigabrain. He does everything perfectly. This never apologize energy essentially became his entire brand. And I'm gonna be real, if that was the end of it, we wouldn't be here. There's a reason I didn't cover it when it happened, because I just didn't feel like it was really enough to talk about. It was kind of funny, but it wasn't really a big enough story. But unfortunately, the Pirate saga just kept evolving like a crappy Pokemon. It's kind of like the evolution of Nosepass. Nobody asked for this evolution, because once people saw how overly defensive he was, They started digging, and what did they find? The dude essentially LARPing as a genius. One example being like his old live stream VODs where he Googled the solution of a puzzle and then proceeded to pretend to solve the puzzle. Basically, he was on his phone during the stream and suddenly went, "Oh, I know the answer." And everyone was like, "Well, is that because you Googled it, dude?" So Pirate then responded via stream and said that he did not cheat and seemed pretty taken aback that people even thought that he would ever cheat.
Why did you cheat in Outer Wilds? What? How the hell would you cheat in that game? Bro, we played it all live on stream. All right, bud. It's a wild-ass thing to say. What the hell?
Honestly, it seems exhausting to LARP as a genius. There's this saying that's like, you should never be the smartest person in the room. And that saying is quite comfy for me because as long as there's someone else in the room, I'm chilling. They can thankfully carry that burden for me, especially if I'm in the same room as Galaxy Brain Pirate Software here. And speaking of Galaxy Brain takes here, he had a bizarre rant where he trashed the Stop Killing Games movement, a campaign created to preserve digital games before companies shut them down forever. And he misrepresented the whole thing like he hadn't read a single word from the mission statement, with one of his statements describing the campaign as used car salesman garbage, and then told the campaign supporters to eat his entire ass. Gee, maybe they would if you didn't keep running away. On a serious note, sir, you're just yelling at people trying to protect nostalgia, all while sounding like a philosophical Reddit mod who steals quotes from stoic Facebook groups. But either way, Pirate made 2 videos on why he didn't support the movement, basically taking the stance that he was standing up for the devs who couldn't stand up for themselves, saying that of course gamers were into this movement, but devs were getting the short end of the stick. And even if some of those points were valid, he was so over the top and harsh about the movement as a whole, he just sounded like a scumbag. And I'm not even coming for this guy personally, it's just he legit just made 2 videos that are extremely hard to watch and have a very I'm better than you attitude during the whole thing.
And it's really easy to say like, oh, you know, that'll get worked out down the line. But we're dealing with government here. If we're going to be putting up these types of ideas, specifically in front of government, we need to be calling out the right issues, especially if you don't have precedent set. Because now you're going to be setting precedent on something that doesn't make any sense, with people that may not understand the nuance of our industry, all in the name of saving games. I can't agree with that.
So in short, that's his take. So to give more context here, Stop Killing Games is led by Accursed Farms, or Ross. And Ross partially blames Pirate's influential videos as the reason Stop Killing Games is potentially dissolving right now.
Hello, this is probably the final update to the Stop Killing Games campaign. Though I'm coming at you a little bit like a time traveler would. It'll make sense in a minute. As a refresher, Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement to stop publishers from effectively destroying video games they have already sold to customers. Okay, I really don't want to do this next part, but it's become a liability for the campaign for me not to. Our biggest critic by far is YouTuber and streamer Pirate Software, who goes by Thor. If your only exposure to Stop Killing Games has been this video, then you've been misinformed. This video is by someone who does not understand the campaign, has been trying to stop it, and has been making up what it is about. Now you might be thinking,